So just imagine for a moment, what if there was an education system where students didn't just, learn, but actually mastered subjects much, much faster? Like, imagine afternoons totally free for their own projects, exploring things they actually care about, real-world stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What if we could just sort of lift those typical classroom roadblocks?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like the ideal, doesn't it? That kind of deeply personalized, really efficient learning that, well, educators have dreamt about for ages, but it always seemed impossible to scale up.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we're going to deep dive into today. Welcome, everyone. We're exploring a really pretty groundbreaking model for education.
Hmm.
And it's not just theory, it's happening now, and it's powered by artificial intelligence.
Right. And our guide for this is McKenzie Price. She's the founder of Alpha School and 2-Hour Learning. We're drawing a lot from her insights, particularly from her appearance on the Cognitive Revolution YouTube channel.
Yeah, she laid out a really compelling case. So our mission today is to unpack how AI is actually making this new kind of education possible. One that promises not just better academic results, but also really focuses on student well-being, making learning, well, enjoyable again.
The whole package.
And here's the really wild claim we need to tackle. Students getting through all their traditional subjects, math, science, the works, in just 2 hours a day.
It does sound almost too good to be true when you first hear it like that.
Right. So we're going to break down what that actually means, how it works, the mechanics behind it, and what it could mean for the future of learning. Let's get into it.
Okay, so at its heart, Alpha School's big innovation is how they're using AI. They're leveraging it to deliver what's basically one-on-one tutoring, but crucially in a way that can scale up. And it's based on mastery learning.
It's not just like a fancy add-on then.
No, not at all. It's really the fundamental architecture of how they teach.
And that structure, the 2-hour morning block for academics, that sounds really transformative. I mean, math, science, history, English, all done by lunch.
Pretty much, yeah. For the core academic subjects based on, Common Core standards.
So if that's all handled, what happens with the rest of the day? That's a lot of free time.
Exactly. That's where it gets really interesting. Their afternoons are completely freed up for what they call enriching activities, and that's a broad term.
Okay.
It covers things like, field trips that actually connect what they learn in the morning to the real world.
Yeah.
It means time for deep dives into personal projects, whatever the student is curious about, and lots of creative exploration.
So it really flips the script on the traditional school day. Less sitting and listening, more doing and exploring.
Precisely. It puts a huge premium on developing the whole person, not just the academic side.
Now, you mentioned mastery learning. And Alpha School talks about demanding productive struggle. That sounds important. It suggests this isn't just making things easy, right? Can you unpack that a bit? What does productive struggle look like?
Absolutely. And that's key. It's not watered down. Productive struggle is, it's the opposite of just giving kids the answers. It's about them really grappling with a tough concept.
Okay.
Maybe they try a few different ways to solve a problem. The AI might give them a hint, not the solution. Or maybe it redirects them to a quick lesson on a skill they seem to be missing before they tackle the harder problem again.
So the AI is sort of guiding that struggle, making it productive rather than just frustrating.
Exactly. The goal is real understanding, true mastery before they're allowed to move on. It's completely different from a traditional class where, you move to chapter 5 on Monday because that's what the schedule says, whether you understood chapter 4 or not.
Right. Here you have to prove you get it based on standards, like Common Core you mentioned.
Full mastery.
Okay, that's a critical difference. And I guess that leads to the results, which honestly sound pretty staggering. Alpha students learning at 2.3 times the rate of peers in typical schools.
Yeah, it's an astounding figure.
I mean, that's like doing more than 2 school years worth of learning in just 1 year. How does that even happen? What's the underlying mechanism for that kind of speed?
Well, what's fascinating is that this level of acceleration, while it sounds revolutionary with AI, actually connects back to some really classic education research. Price specifically points to Benjamin Bloom's work from the 80s on the 2 sigma problem.
Bloom's 2 sigma. Okay, refresh us on that.
Sure. So Bloom did these studies, quite famous ones, showing that students who received one-on-one tutoring, combined with that mastery approach we just talked about, performed 2 standard deviations better than students in a standard classroom.
2 standard deviations. And just to put that in perspective for listeners, that basically means the average tutored student performs better than something like 95% of the students in the regular class.
Exactly. It essentially turns an average student into like a top-tier performer. But the problem, part of the Two Sigma problem was always scalability, right? How could you possibly provide a dedicated, expert human tutor for every single student? The cost, the logistics, it was just impossible for public education or even most private settings.
Until now, maybe? Is that where the AI comes in?
That's precisely the argument. AI changes the game entirely because now you can measure exactly what a student knows and where their gaps are. With incredible precision, you can generate lessons that adapt on the fly to their specific pace, their learning style, and you can create these constant feedback loops that make sure they've truly mastered something before moving on. So the AI allows us to finally scale up what we've known for decades is the most effective way to teach. It really makes you ask, okay, now that we can scale it, what does that mean?
Right. It's not just about giving kids a chatbot then.
Yeah.
It sounds much more integrated. How does Alpha actually use these AI tools day to day?
Correct.
What's the student interacting with?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely not just, here's ChatGPT, go learn math. They use a carefully curated suite of adaptive learning apps. Some are proprietary, developed in-house. Others are best-in-class third-party tools they've integrated.
Okay, a curated suite. So it's intentional?
Very intentional. And these tools are woven into the fabric of that 2-hour learning block. So imagine a student's working on, say, algebra. The AI isn't just marking right or wrong, it's watching how they solve the problem.
Ah, the process.
Exactly. It sees where they hesitated, what mistake they made, and it might instantly pop up a visual explanation of that specific concept they're struggling with, or maybe it gives them a slightly easier foundational problem to reinforce a skill first, or it suggests a targeted mini-lesson. It's acting like that responsive human tutor, but it's software.
So it's constantly adjusting, almost invisibly tailoring the path for each kid.
That's the idea, highly personalized. These tools track progress, track learning patterns with really amazing detail. This allows the system to recommend the best next step in the curriculum sequence for that specific child.
And it can offer different ways to learn the same thing, like videos or interactive things.
Multimodal lessons. Visual, auditory, hands-on interactive formats catering to how different kids learn best. And this is crucial. The system is constantly learning too. It's updated and improved based on the real-time data from all the students using it.
So AI isn't just a tool, it's the engine driving the instruction. That scalable instructional engine idea makes sense now.
Exactly. Optimizing for each individual learner.
Okay, I get the morning part now, the AI-driven mastery. But let's circle back to those afternoons. Because if the core academics are handled so efficiently, maybe the real transformation happens then, in that reclaimed time. What defines those afternoon activities?
I think that's right. The afternoons are really where they focus on exploration, on creation, on personal growth. This is where a student might decide, I want to build a robot or I want to write a fantasy novel, and they get the support and resources to actually do it.
So truly independent projects based on their own interests.
Yes, tailored to them. Plus, those field trips we mentioned, making learning real and tangible. And, importantly, there's dedicated time for mentorship and coaching, not just academic coaching, but focusing on things like emotional intelligence, motivation, resilience, critical thinking, those crucial life skills.
That sounds incredibly holistic. And you mentioned something really unique earlier, teaching kids to see AI as a superpower, even from kindergarten. How does that work? What does that look like for a 5 or 6-year-old?
It's a pretty radical idea, isn't it? But yeah, from the very beginning, they're taught not just sort of the mechanics of using AI tools, but how to think with them, how to use AI as an extension of their own minds to boost their creativity, their productivity.
So it's not about replacing their thinking, but augmenting it.
Precisely. It's about teaching them to leverage AI to, say, brainstorm more ideas than they could alone, or to help organize research for a project, or maybe even to get feedback on a story they're writing or a piece of art they've created. The goal ultimately is to prepare them for a future where AI isn't just this separate thing you sometimes use, but it's woven into everything, a collaborative partner in work and life.
That really reframes the whole idea of digital literacy, which inevitably must completely change what the human teachers do, right? If AI is handling the core instruction and acting as a superpower tool, what's the role of the educator?
Yeah, it's a fundamental shift. They're explicitly not lecturers delivering content from the front of the room. At Alpha, they call them coaches or guides.
Coaches or guides, okay.
And their main job becomes fostering those things AI can't do. They're the motivators, the mentors, the ones providing emotional support. Their focus is on building grit, self-awareness, encouraging that natural curiosity, sparking creativity. They facilitate the human side of learning.
So they're hired and evaluated less on subject matter delivery and more on their ability to connect, inspire, and guide the students emotionally and motivationally.
That's the model. It's a huge difference. And you can see how this not only potentially improves education for the kids, but it also reframes the teaching profession itself.
How so?
Well, it allows educators to focus on the most rewarding, most uniquely human parts of teaching, that connection, the inspiration, the guidance, instead of spending all their time on rote instruction or standardized test prep, which arguably AI can now handle very efficiently and even more personally.
That's fascinating. It elevates the human element by automating the rest.
Exactly. It makes the job potentially much more fulfilling for people who are passionate about actually mentoring young people.
This whole model, it sounds incredibly promising.
Mhm.
But I can hear listeners thinking, okay, this sounds great, but is this just another elite private school thing? What about accessibility? Is there a real path to bringing this to more kids? Equity is such a huge issue.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something Price and Alpha School seem very focused in. It's not just about staying a boutique private school. They are actively working on creating charter school adaptations. Ah, okay. So bringing it into the public or semi-public sphere.
That's the goal, which would be a massive step towards making this kind of personalized, AI-powered learning much more widely available. That's a potential game changer for democratizing access.
That really is. What else are they exploring?
They're also developing homeschool options, which could offer families more flexibility but still provide that structure and the AI platform. And importantly, they talk about a commitment to tiered price points, even within their private models, trying to make it accessible across a wider economic range than typical elite schools.
So the vision is broader than just serving the wealthy.
If you take them at their word, yes. The long-term vision seems to be about democratizing the benefits we've always known come from great one-on-one tutoring and modern learning science, using AI as the tool to finally make that top-tier educational experience available, potentially, to everyone. Wow, what an incredible deep dive this has been. It really forces you to reconsider the limitations of our traditional batch processing classrooms,
No?
designed for a different era entirely, and to imagine what education could be like. Truly customized, empowering, maybe even joyful for kids today.
It really is a powerful vision. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, with AI, we can finally achieve what learning science has been telling us for decades, that we can have instruction that is scalable, incredibly precise, and deeply human-centered, all at the same time. Optimize the academics to free up the human potential.
Which leaves us with a really interesting thought to chew on, doesn't it? If learning core academics can genuinely be accelerated this much, say, down to 2 hours a day, what does that mean for the rest of education? What new skills, what human capacities become the most important things to cultivate in a generation that grows up using AI naturally, like a superpower?
Mm-hmm.
What does it even mean to be educated in that kind of future?